The world of Aerthos was not bound by mere paper and ink when it came to the most profound of human promises. Here, contracts, especially the sacred bond of matrimony, were etched not just into legal scrolls, but into the very fabric of one's being. This was the mark of union, a mystical imprint, a luminous covenant that wove the souls of two individuals together, ensuring fidelity, shared purpose, and a unique, unfiltered transparency of intent. It was said that the mark compelled honesty, revealing the true heart's desire beneath any surface pretense. For generations, it had ensured lasting peace within families, stability within kingdoms, and love that ran deeper than spoken vows. Elara had once believed in the absolute purity of the mark. She had embraced it with an open heart, signing her life away to Lysander, a man whose charisma was a tangible force, whose smile could disarm nations, and whose declared love for her seemed boundless. Their union was the envy of high society, a perfect match of beauty, intellect, and perceived devotion. Their mansion, nestled amidst sprawling emerald gardens, echoed with laughter and the gentle hum of contentment. Or so she thought. But the mark, while binding, did not always reveal its truths immediately. It was a slow burn, a gradual unveiling, like watching paint dry on a canvas, only to realize the masterpiece was a chilling portrait of despair. For Elara, the first cracks appeared subtly. A fleeting thought from Lysander, dismissed initially as an anomaly, a rogue impulse. A momentary flicker of calculation when he spoke of their future rather than shared dreams. Then came the coldness, the casual indifference to her feelings, cloaked in feigned concern. The strategic manipulations hidden beneath compliments. The way his eyes, once pools of warmth, would harden when power or profit was at stake. A predatory gleam that sent shivers down her spine, even as he stroked her hair and whispered sweet nothings. The mark of union was revealing its darker side. Lysander's true intentions were not love, but acquisition. She was merely another valuable asset in his grand design, a beautiful adornment for his image, a tool to expand his influence. Her perfect life was a gilded cage, and the mark of union, once a symbol of eternal connection, had become her prison. She saw his thoughts now, unfiltered, raw. Her family's influence is crucial for the railway deal. Her beauty secures the alliance with the Northern Duke. Her naivety makes her so easy to manage. The words echoed in her mind, not spoken, but undeniably felt, through the magical tether that linked them. The man she loved was a meticulously crafted facade, and behind it lurked a monster of ambition, devoid of empathy, utterly ruthless. The mark had indeed revealed his intentions, but too late. It had revealed them to her, but it hadn't stopped him or protected her. It had merely forced her to witness the slow, agonizing dissection of her soul. The final straw came during a lavish ball, a celebration of their first anniversary. Amidst the swirling silks and glittering jewels, Lysander, with a chillingly serene expression, casually outlined his plan to ruin a business rival, a plan that involved fabricating evidence and exploiting an innocent family. As he spoke, Elara felt the surge of his cold, calculated glee through their shared bond. He reveled in destruction, in dominion, in the utter subjugation of others. And the worst part? He felt no remorse, no hesitation, only a thrilling anticipation of triumph. That night, something inside Elara broke. The thought, the terrifying, desperate thought, solidified in her mind. She had to escape, not just from him, but from this timeline. It was a mad, desperate idea, whispered about only in hushed, ancient texts, a forbidden ritual, a chaotic disruption of the mark itself, rumored to tear the very fabric of existence. She knew the risks were astronomical: madness, oblivion, or being trapped in an endless void between realities. But to stay, to live out her days tethered to a monster, was a fate far worse. Driven by an instinct for survival she didn't know she possessed, Elara sought out the forgotten lore, the ancient texts that spoke of such desperate measures. She found it in the deepest chambers of her family's ancestral library, a tome bound in aged leather, crackling with dormant energy. The ritual was complex, demanding a sacrifice of self, a complete surrender to the unknown. With trembling hands and a resolved heart, she performed the forbidden rite. A surge of raw, untamed magic erupted, tearing at her very essence, ripping her from the fabric of her present. The world dissolved into a maelstrom of light and sound, and then nothing. Utter, profound silence. She awoke with a gasp, disoriented, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The opulent bedchamber was similar, yet slightly different. The scent of lavender replaced Lysander's sharp, metallic cologne. Her hands, where the mark had once glowed, were now clear, unblemished. A wave of dizziness washed over her. Memories of the other timeline, the one she had just escaped, flooding her mind with vivid, terrifying clarity. The gilded cage, Lysander's cold smile, the agonizing revelation of his true nature. It was all real, etched into her soul, even if the magical bond was gone. It was real. She had truly done it. She had defied fate, ripped herself from a predetermined, horrifying future. A second chance. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. The past was not merely a dream. It was a blueprint of what would have been. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that she could not, would not, allow it to unfold again. Lysander would surely seek her out in this timeline too, his charm and ambition undiminished. She needed a shield, a bulwark, something, someone, strong enough to deter him. Her mind immediately went to the only man who had ever truly stood against Lysander, the one individual powerful enough, and perhaps ruthless enough, to ward him off. Kaelen Thorne. His name was whispered in hushed tones, synonymous with immense wealth, an impenetrable network of influence, and a reputation as cold and unyielding as the mountains from which his family fortune sprang. He was a reclusive tycoon, a man scarred not just by battles in the boardroom, but by literal scars etched across his face, testaments to a past shrouded in rumor and speculation. Kaelen Thorne was Lysander's antithesis. Where Lysander was polished charm, Kaelen was raw power. Where Lysander spun webs of deceit, Kaelen reportedly dealt in brutal honesty. He was a force of nature, a man who built empires not on social grace, but on sheer, unadulterated will. And this, Elara realized with a jolt, was precisely what she needed. Not a lover, not a savior, but a fortress, a shield against the creeping shadow of her past. Her strategy was audacious, perhaps even insane. She would approach Kaelen Thorne, the merciless tycoon, and propose a contract of marriage, but not just any contract, a purely platonic, business-only arrangement, a strategic alliance. She would offer him whatever he desired, her family's dwindling influence, a portion of her personal wealth, her connections, in exchange for his protection, his name, and the impenetrable shield of the Thorne Empire. It was a desperate gamble, but her very survival, her very sanity depended on it. Gaining an audience with Kaelen Thorne was a monumental task, akin to breaching a fortified citadel. His corporate headquarters, a monolith of obsidian glass and steel, seemed to actively repel all but the most determined. Elara used every remaining thread of her family's influence, every carefully cultivated connection, to secure a meeting. It took weeks of relentless persistence, countless rejections, and a final, desperate plea that played on the fragile threads of ancient familial obligation. Finally, a single, terse message arrived. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Thorne Tower. Do not be late. The office was as imposing as the man himself. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, a testament to his dominion. Kaelen Thorne sat behind a desk that looked carved from solid rock, his posture radiating an unyielding authority. His dark eyes, sharp as obsidian shards, immediately fixed on Elara, dissecting her with an uneasy intensity.
The famous scar, a jagged line from his temple to his jaw, only added to his formidable aura. He didn't offer a chair, a smile, or even a greeting. He simply waited, his silence a challenge.
Elara took a steadying breath. This was it. Her voice, though a little shaky at first, quickly found its strength. She laid out her proposal with brutal honesty, omitting only the terrifying details of her escape from another timeline. She spoke of the mutual benefits, the strategic advantages, the undeniable logic of their families, once rivals, joining forces. She painted a picture of a purely transactional partnership, emphasizing the absence of emotional entanglement. A contract of convenience, Lord Thorne, she concluded, her gaze unwavering. A shield for my family and a significant expansion of your own empire. Kaelen Thorne remained silent for a long moment, his gaze never leaving her face. The air in the room seemed to crackle with unspoken thoughts. Then he spoke, his voice a low rumble, surprisingly modulated, yet laced with an undeniable edge. "And what," he finally asked, his eyes narrowing slightly, "do you propose to offer that I cannot acquire on my own, and without the inconvenience of a binding magical union?" His words were precise, cutting, revealing a mind as sharp as any blade. Elara met his challenge. She spoke of her unique understanding of the old ways, the connections her family still held in the arcane circles, the subtle political leverages she could provide. "You have power, Lord Thorne," she conceded, "but I offer finesse where your strength might overwhelm. I offer a legacy, however tarnished, that can be interwoven with your own, granting a legitimacy you have, perhaps, been too busy forging to cultivate." She spoke of Lysander, not by name, but as an encroaching shadow, a rival whose manipulative tactics could be countered only by a united front of formidable, unwavering power. He turned from the window then, and for the first time, Elara saw a hint of something beyond cold calculation in his eyes, a flash of recognition, or perhaps simply a new assessment. He walked slowly back to his desk, picking up a heavy leather-bound volume, a contract template, she realized, for the Mark of Union. He didn't immediately offer it. Instead, he simply looked at her, a profound intensity in his gaze that seemed to pierce her very soul. "You truly desire a union without affection, Lady Elara?" he asked, his voice softer, almost a whisper, yet still resonant with power. "A marriage of pure utility?" "Lord Thorne," she replied, her voice steady, "I desire peace, security, and the certainty that I will never again be trapped by deceit. Affection, in my experience, has proven to be the most dangerous illusion of all. A clear, unambiguous business arrangement, sealed by the mark, is the only foundation I can now trust." She watched him, waiting, bracing herself for rejection, or worse, for him to exploit her vulnerability. For another long moment, he said nothing, his gaze unwavering. Then, slowly, he extended the heavy vellum contract across the desk. It wasn't a gesture of warmth, but of solemn agreement. "Very well, Lady Elara," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet ringing with a strange finality. "Let our intentions be known to the mark." Elara's breath hitched. She had done it. She had secured her improbable alliance. The first step was complete. The ceremony was ancient and solemn, performed in a hidden chamber beneath Thorne Tower, a place imbued with raw elemental magic. The High Seer, his face shadowed by his hood, chanted the old incantations, weaving the spell that would bind their fates. As their hands touched, palm to palm, the luminous lines of the Mark of Union began to glow, tracing their paths not just on their skin, but seemingly deeper into the very essence of their souls. Elara felt a subtle hum, a resonant vibration that signified the magic was taking hold, creating the sacred, transparent bond. Then it hit her, a sudden, overwhelming flood of impressions, a torrent of raw, unfiltered thought and emotion that was not her own, yet was undeniably present in her mind.
It was the magic of the mark, doing what it was designed to do, revealing the true intentions of its signatories. She braced herself for Kaelen's mercenary thoughts, for his calculations of profit and power, for the cool, detached assessment of their new arrangement. She expected the pragmatic, the transactional. And then, unexpectedly, other thoughts, intrusive and chilling, fought their way into her awareness. Lysander's thoughts. Not physically present, but his true nature, his core intentions, laid bare and accessible through the faint, persistent resonance of their past broken bond. They reeked of avarice, a ravenous hunger for wealth and influence. His mental landscape was a desolate plain of strategic machinations, where people were pawns, and love was a currency to be spent. She felt his profound contempt for her, perceived weakness, his calculating pleasure in deceiving her. It was a stark, horrifying confirmation of the monster she had escaped, a bitter validation of her terror. But then, the flood shifted. Lysander's dark imprint receded, replaced by an even more overwhelming wave, Kaelen's true intentions. And they were nothing, absolutely nothing like she expected. Instead of the cold calculation she anticipated, a different kind of intensity washed over her. It was a desperate, unspoken love, vast and profound, a longing that stretched back years, woven into the very fabric of his being. She saw glimpses of his past, through his own memories, felt through the magic. Kaelen, a younger man, observing her from across a crowded ballroom, his gaze filled with a quiet admiration she had never noticed. His subtle attempts to warn her against Lysander's early machinations, which she, in her naivety and infatuation, had dismissed as the petty jealousy of a rival. His profound despair when she announced her engagement to Lysander, a silent agony that had festered in his heart for years. He had watched her, loved her, from afar, utterly devoted, yet never daring to approach her, due to his own scars, his own self-perceived unworthiness. The revelation was a hammer blow to Elara's carefully constructed defenses. This scarred, reclusive, merciless tycoon, rumored to have a heart of ice, harbored a love for her so deep, so pure, it defied logic. It was a love that had patiently endured, suffering in silence, never demanding, never asking for anything in return. The contrast with Lysander's predatory thoughts was so stark, so absolute, it stole her breath. Kaelen, the man she had sought for protection, not affection, was the very embodiment of the true, selfless devotion she had once craved but never found. The ritual concluded, the High Seer bowed and departed, leaving them alone in the echoing chamber. Elara stood there, her head spinning, the echoes of Kaelen's silent adoration vibrating in her very bones. She looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time. The hard lines of his face, the imposing scar, now seemed less like marks of brutality and more like the topography of a battle-worn soul. His eyes, once piercing, now seemed to hold a profound, weary tenderness she hadn't detected before. Kaelen, ever observant, sensed her disquiet. Though his face remained a mask, she felt his concern, a quiet hum in her mind. Is she all right? Was the influx too much? What has she seen? Does she know? He extended a hand, not in comfort, but in a silent offer of assistance, a steady anchor in the swirling chaos of her revelations. Elara hesitated for a fraction of a second, then took it. His touch was firm, grounding. The journey back to the upper floors was conducted in a profound, almost suffocating silence, punctuated only by the soft click of their footsteps on the polished stone. But the silence was an illusion. Inside Elara's mind, Kaelen's thoughts, now a constant presence, unfolded like a gentle tide. She felt his quiet satisfaction that she was safe, his profound relief that she had chosen him, even for a transactional bond. And beneath it all, a persistent, aching longing for something more, something he dared not voice, something he had buried deep beneath layers of steel and resolve. Her new suite in Thorne Tower was opulent, yet lacked the fussy, suffocating grandeur of Lysander's mansion. It was spacious, minimalist, designed for functionality and understated luxury. Elara moved through it like a ghost, her mind still reeling. The mark of union thrummed with Kaelen's presence. She felt his quiet directives to his staff to ensure her comfort, his mental instructions for her safety, his immediate focus on protecting her from any potential repercussions of her sudden, unexplained reappearance in society.
She looked at her hand, where the luminous lines of the mark glowed steadily, a stark contrast to the chaotic, unsettling pulse of Lysander's mark from the previous timeline. Kaelen's thoughts about her now, unfiltered and pure, were a strange comfort. He saw her not as an asset, but as resilient, beautiful, intelligent. He wasn't thinking of profit margins, but of her well-being. He was planning not a conquest, but a fortress around her. This was not the merciless tycoon of rumor. This was something else entirely. Life in Thorne Tower settled into a routine that was both predictable and utterly bizarre. Elara occupied herself with reorganizing the remnants of her family's affairs, subtly guided by Kaelen's efficient, almost clinical, mental suggestions for maximizing their strategic advantage. Their daily interactions were formal, polite, and strictly business. He would bring her reports, discuss market trends, or review legal documents. But for Elara, every interaction was now overlaid with the profound intimacy of the mark. She saw his careful consideration, his quiet appreciation of her insights, his unwavering focus on her safety. When a letter arrived, subtly threatening and undeniably from one of Lysander's remaining cronies, Elara felt a surge of cold dread. But simultaneously, a wave of Kaelen's protective fury washed over her. His thoughts were a whirlwind of decisive action, a mental blueprint for immediate countermeasures. Lawyers deployed, security tightened, counterintelligence initiated. There was no hesitation, no fear, only a swift, unyielding resolve to neutralize any threat to her. His ruthlessness, she realized, was a shield for those he protected, not a sword for arbitrary conquest. She began to observe Kaelen with new eyes. During business meetings, where his reputation for ruthlessness was on full display, she felt the underlying currents of his thoughts. He wasn't driven by greed, but by a profound sense of responsibility for his employees, for his legacy, for the stability he sought to build. His decisive actions were born not of malice, but of a clear vision and an unwillingness to tolerate inefficiency or deceit. His reclusiveness, too, made sense. His mind was a place of constant strategic calculation, of deep emotional currents he kept hidden from the world. He was a man who preferred the silent company of his own thoughts to the superficiality of social gatherings. The man she had married for protection was slowly, undeniably, revealing himself to be everything she had truly desired in a partner. His coldness was a quiet strength, his ruthlessness a fierce protectiveness, and the desperate, unspoken love that echoed in her mind through the mark was no longer a shocking revelation, but a profound, aching truth. It was a love that had waited, patiently, silently, in the shadows, while she had been blinded by a superficial charlatan. The guilt, sharp and sudden, pierced her heart. She had misjudged him so utterly, assumed the worst, driven by her own trauma. One evening, unable to bear the weight of her revelations any longer, Elara found Kaelen in his study, poring over ancient texts, perhaps seeking solace from the demands of his empire. The soft glow of a desk lamp illuminated his profile, highlighting the weary lines around his eyes. She approached him, her heart pounding. "Kaelen," she began, her voice barely a whisper, yet resonating in the quiet room. He looked up, his expression unreadable, but she felt a ripple of surprise and quiet curiosity in his mind. "The mark," she continued, her voice gaining strength, it reveals everything, doesn't it?" She watched his face for a reaction, but he remained impassive. She felt his internal response. "Yes, it does. What have you seen, Elara? Are you afraid? Disgusted?" I
I see your thoughts, she confessed, her gaze fixed on him, searching for something, anything. Not just your intentions for our alliance, but everything. Your past, your feelings. Kaelen slowly closed the book, his movements deliberate. He turned fully to face her, his gaze unwavering, but now, for the first time, openly vulnerable. His internal landscape shifted, revealing a profound sense of exposure, a quiet acceptance of his nakedness before her. You know, then, his thoughts murmured in her mind, a quiet sorrow mixed with a fragile hope. You know the truth I never dared to speak. Why? She whispered, tears blurring her vision. The pain in her voice was raw, the guilt consuming. She felt his gentle answer in her mind, a wave of profound humility and self-doubt. Because I was not worthy, because you were destined for greater things, because I could not bear to shadow your illusions, even if they were built on sand. He slowly reached out, his scarred hand trembling slightly, and gently cupped her cheek. The touch was soft, tender, utterly unlike the man she had believed him to be. Through the mark, his love for her poured into her, a torrent of years of unrequited devotion, of watching her from afar, of wishing for her happiness, even if it wasn't with him. I loved you, Elara. I always have, from the first moment I saw you. And when you came to me, seeking a shield, I swore I would be that for you, even if it meant burying my heart forever. She leaned into his touch, the tears finally flowing freely. The raw honesty of his confession, amplified by the mark, was a balm to her wounded soul. It was the antithesis of Lysander's deceit, the pure, unadulterated truth she had yearned for her entire life. In that moment, the trauma of her past began to recede, replaced by a profound sense of peace and a dawning, terrifying, exhilarating hope. She was not alone. She had found not just a shield, but a true, unwavering heart. News of Elara's sudden marriage to Kaelen Thorne sent shockwaves through the upper echelons of society. For Lysander, it was more than an inconvenience. It was a personal affront, a strategic nightmare. His mental landscape, when Elara inadvertently brushed against it through the mark, was a maelstrom of furious disbelief, accusations of betrayal, and a desperate, calculating need to reclaim what he saw as his asset. He plotted, he schemed, his thoughts buzzing with vengeful intentions and elaborate plan to destabilize the Thorne Empire. He confronted them eventually, at a public gala, his usual polished charm replaced by a veneer of barely suppressed fury. He attempted to isolate Elara, to whisper accusations of Kaelen's supposed dark dealings, to reassert his old hold. But Elara was no longer the naive woman he had once manipulated. She stood by Kaelen's side, their hands subtly clasped, the mark a visible testament to their bond. Through the magical tether, she felt Kaelen's quiet amusement at Lysander's bluster, his unwavering confidence, his protective stance. Lysander's words, designed to charm and persuade, fell flat. Elara saw through them, not just with her intellect, but with the searing clarity provided by the mark. His mental landscape was a cacophony of petty grievances, self-aggrandizement, and a chilling lack of genuine emotion. He spoke of love, but his thoughts were of possession. He spoke of consent, but his mind revealed only disdain. The contrast with Kaelen's deep, abiding love, which resonated within her, was devastatingly clear. Lysander was a hollow shell, and the mark of union had ensured his true nature was finally irrevocably exposed. Kaelen stepped forward, his expression unreadable, yet radiating an undeniable power. His voice, calm and steady, cut through the tension. Lysander, he stated, his gaze meeting his rivals, the mark of union reveals all. Any further attempts to sow discord or inflict harm upon my wife will be met with the full force of my intentions, which, I assure you, are now entirely clear. Elara felt the quiet, steel-edged resolve in his words, and a shudder of fear, not for herself, but for Lysander, ran through her. Lysander, for the first time in his life, seems to truly grasp the futility of his manipulations. Faced with the undeniable truth revealed by the mark and the formidable, united front of Elara and Kaelen, his facade crumbled. He turned, his shoulders slumped, and melted into the crowd. His power diminished, his schemes laid bare. The threat was neutralized, not by force, but by the undeniable clarity of magical truth.
Elara looked at Kaelen, a gentle smile gracing her lips, a smile of profound peace and burgeoning love. Her second chance had not led her to a perfect, sterile arrangement, but to something far more real, far more meaningful. She had sought a shield and found a soulmate. The magic of the mark, which had once felt like a prison, was now a conduit of unparalleled intimacy, a testament to a love that had defied time, expectation, and even deceit. In the world of Aerthos, where contracts bound souls, Elara had finally found a contract that bound two true hearts, revealing not just intentions, but an enduring, desperate, unspoken love that had waited years for its moment to bloom.